Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. And we'll just allow a few minutes for people to trickle in. And people are still coming in. This is great. And still coming in. This is wonderful. Okay, we seem to have leveled off. Welcome to Disability Research in Academic Medicine, or DREAM Research Rounds. I'm Dr. Lisa Meeks, the founder and co-director of the Docs with Disabilities Initiative. The DREAM Consortium is an international community of clinicians and researchers dedicated to advancing disability inclusion in medical education, and our mission is very clear. We hope to build, mentor, and grow a dynamic network of scholars advancing disability inclusion research in academic medicine. We also want to highlight and promote the impactful research that is actually happening around the globe. And we want to identify and address critical gaps in disability data. Finally, and in many ways, most importantly for me, I want to connect researchers and students, learners, our entire community to foster cross-cultural collaboration and innovation. As you may already know, all of our DREAM rounds are recorded and available at the Docs with Disabilities Initiative YouTube channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, you may want to do that to get notified of all of the things that we post. If you missed our last session, Dr. Alison Calwood from the University of Surrey shared her insightful work innovating for sustainable workforce through neuro-inclusive selection to health professions, process evaluation of a novel co-designed interview. And I had the benefit at ASME of seeing Alison present this work and immediately said, you need to present a DREAM rounds. So that is available now on our YouTube page. But today, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce a speaker that's near and dear to my heart, someone who's taught me so much and that I get to work with every day, Mytien Nguyen. Mytien is an MD, PhD student at Yale School of Medicine and a graduate of Cornell University, where she earned both her undergraduate and graduate degrees. Her work focuses on eliminating barriers that prevent first-generation and low-income college graduates from pursuing careers in medicine. Mytien is a tireless advocate. And when I say tireless, this warrior is working, I feel like 24/7, but a tireless advocate for health equity. She's also the co-founder of the National First Gen and Low Income Medicine Association. Please join me in welcoming Mytien to Dream Research Rounds, and I'll turn it over to you, Mytien.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me. And of course, Lisa is very humble, and without Lisa, I wouldn't be here. So today, I am really excited to present our work on examining burnout among medical students at the intersection of disability, race, and ethnicity. My name is Mytien Nguyen. I'm an MD PhD candidate at Yale School of Medicine. Before we start, I want to introduce you the dream team to pun with the dream rounds for this paper that I'll presenting the results of. And of course, Lisa, Karina, Justin, Amy, Chris, and Dallin, who made it all possible. So before we start on looking at the data, I want to share with everyone, kind of get everyone on the same page about burnout. So what is burnout? Burnout is by definition a state of mental and physical exhaustion related to your work, caregiving activities, your everyday life. It is often depicted as, everyone has a fire, a candle that eventually get burnt out and diminish in terms of the ability for you to spark flame. Burnout in the health profession has many costs, both economic, personal, and to our patients. So the cost of burnout is very wide. Burnout among health profession, can lead to decreased quality of care for our patients, If physicians and other health professionals are burnt out, there's a higher likelihood of physicians and health professionals committing medical error because of the lack of energy and effort to do work. There's also decreased productivity as well. And also decreased patient satisfaction. So the state of burnout, it has many causes across the medical profession, and those causes have long-lasting and reverberating effect, downstream consequences for all patients. One of the biggest causes of burnout that we talk about is physician turnover. So burnout can lead to physician reducing efforts in productivity by 1% every 3 years. So a physician who is burned out has a decreased reduction in productivity and effort in their work by 1% every 3 years. And this is calculated to be the equivalent of eliminating the graduating class of 7 medical schools. So it's as if we have 7 medical schools less out of the 150 something ish that we have currently. And then burnout also causes physicians to leave their profession and choose another profession entirely. And this outcome is the equivalent to eliminating the graduating class of 12 medical schools. So if we were to combine both the reduction in effort and productivity as well as attrition among physicians due to burnout, we would be in essence, eliminating the graduating class of 19 medical schools. That is a lot of medical schools and graduating classes. And the epidemiology of burnout happens way earlier, way before people become physicians. So medical students actually matriculate into medical school with better well-being than their peers who are not matriculating into medical schools who are at the same age. So they're age-matched peers. However, as they progress through medical school, this trend reverses where medical students gradually become more and more burnt out compared to their peers in general. So, which indicate that medical school learning environment and being in medicine is somehow resulting in this significant increase in burnt out and decrease in well-being among medical trainees as they navigate medical school and into residency. And for perspective, from the myriad of research that we've seen, there is a wide range of reported medical student burnout rate, most of which are less than more than 50%. So more than 1 in 2 of medical students are burnt out. The highest rate that we've seen in the literature is up to 77%. So 2/3 of medical students are burnt out, and this varies depending on which year of medical school they are, as we've seen. The burnout rate among residents is also a great range, ranging from 41% to 90%, also depending on which specialty they are in and which residency program. And then the national physician burnout rate also depends on specialty. But most specialty has greater than 54%. So as we see, the prevalence of burnout is so significant among health professions, especially among trainees that trigger up and as they navigate into residency and into physicianhood. And what we've known about burnout is that there's significant inequity in burnout. So there's 2 metrics for measuring burnout: exhaustion and disengagement. So this is a great study from Dr. Darwin Boatwright and the group at Yale that looked at inequity in burnout by exhaustion and disengagement across sex, race, and sexual orientation. Sorry about that. Sex, race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation. And here on the left, we see a difference in burnout across the different groups. So a positive values means that this group is significantly more burned out compared to the reference. So for exhaustion-related burnout, we see that female students are significantly more burned out than male students. Non-white students are significantly burned out compared to white students. And lesbian, gay, and bisexual students are significantly more burned out than their heterosexual peers. And when we look at disengagement, we see very similar trend in that non-white students are significantly more burnout compared to white students. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual students are significantly more burnout than heterosexual students. But for sex, for example, we see a difference, a reversal effect where female students were less disengaged compared to male students. And that we hypothesize that it might be due to a lot of the programming during medical school centering around women in medicine that keeps female students more engaged in medicine. So with this known correlation between the significantly high prevalence of burnout among medical students and the significant disparity by race ethnicity specifically, we wanted to examine the landscape of burnout among medical students with disability, especially at the intersection between disability, multiple disability, and race ethnicity. So our question was, how does burnout risk compare across students with no disability versus one disability versus multiple disabilities, as well as how does burnout risk compare by intersectional race, ethnic, and disability status? Before we go into the analysis itself, I want to set the stage for what we mean by intersectionality. So this is each individual, everyone here on this meeting has multiple dimensions of marginalization. So these are the social, political, economic, nutritional, and educational contexts in which individuals are placed that leads to potentially lower resources and lack of access that have significant negative influence on their life and well-being and educational and economic outcomes. So for us, when we're talking about marginalization and burnout, each individual's intersecting social, economic, political, nutritional, and educational context would influence the access to well-being resources as well as the day-to-day exposure to stress. And to highlight everyone's intersectionality, there's multiple dimensions of marginalization, including age, race, ethnicity, physical and cognitive disability. Here today, we'll focus mainly on race, ethnicity, physical and cognitive disability. And in addition to multiple dimensions of marginalization across different identities, race, ethnicity, and disability, we want to also examine intersectionality within disability, because when we speak about disability, there is a diverse range of disability we can speak about, including cognitive disability, physical disability, and those experiences itself are, while they have a lot in common, in terms of facing societal barriers, there's a lot of different nuanced differences that we should also examine. So we wanted to examine and understand the medical students' experiences for students who have one type of disability, for example, versus having two or more types of disability. For example, a student who have a hearing disability as well as ADHD in addition. So our study cohort includes a little bit over 27,000 medical students who responded to the year 2 questionnaire from the AAMC. So every year, the AAMC send a questionnaire to year 2 medical students. A part of this questionnaire is students who asking about the older book Burnout inventory for medical students. And this includes exhaustion and disengagement in general. So after we removed students that didn't have complete demographic information, we had a little bit under 24,000 students who completed the year 2 questionnaire with complete demographic information. So before we start on looking at burnout, we wanted to just characterize how many of these students report multiple disability versus one disability by race ethnicity. So we see here that the prevalence of disability and both multiple disability and one disability vary by racial and ethnic group. URiM and other racial ethnic group students, about 1 in 10 students report a one disability, whereas about 1 in 5, much lower percentage of Asian students report one disability. And this could be due to cultural differences that we'll love to talk about more in the discussion part of this seminar. And then among 2 or more disability, we see that across the board, approximately a little bit over 2% of students, white, URiM, and other race and ethnicity students report 2 or more disability, and about 1% of Asian students. So similar trend in terms of Asian students reporting a lower prevalence of multiple disability and disability among Asian students. And of course, we can talk about disaggregation that I'll be really excited to talk about more later. And so when we look at burnout, we define high risk of burnout as those who scored in the top quartile of burnout. So when we look at the prevalence of burnout among students by number of disability, we see that while 1 in 10 of students who without disability report burnout, 1 in 3 of students with multiple disability report burnout, actually. And then 1 in 5 of students with one disability. So we see like an increasing dose response with burnout. So the more disability a student has, the more concurrent disability a student has, the higher likelihood they are in terms of experiencing and reporting burnout. And I would like to remind you that this is at the year 2 of the medical training. So they're not even into year 3 yet, which is often the clinical years. So we're only really talking about the preclinical years for most students, depending on the school curriculum. So we also adjusted for other factors and variables that may contribute to burnout. And even after we adjust, we have a fully adjusted model. Students with 2 or more disability were more than 2 times more likely to report burnout compared to their peers, which is dark and striking, and actually says a lot about the experiences of students with disability in the learning environment of medical school. And then when we look across race and ethnicity, we see that this dose-dependent effect of increasing disability with burnout exists for all students, regardless of race and ethnicity. For white students, for Asian students, for URiM students, and for other race and ethnicity students as well. We see as well that qualitatively that there is a bigger increase for Asian and URiM students. And when we put everything into a fully adjusted model, we do see that the highest risk of burnout exists for Asian and URiM students. And I would like to highlight something here in that while we saw the lowest prevalence of disability among Asian students with disability overall, along with URiM students with disability, have the highest rate of burnout. So the prevalence itself does not translate to the impact and the negative well-being that these students face in medicine. And when we disaggregate burnout into exhaustion and disengagement, we see that this dose-dependent effect of increasing risk for burnout by number of disability with increasing number of disability persists for both exhaustion-related burnout and disengagement. specifically for Asian students here and URiM students. So for both exhaustion and disengagement, it allows us to diagnose in terms of what type of burnout these students are experiencing. They're exhausted, and as well, they also, URiM students and Asian students with multiple disability are also reporting that they're becoming more and more disengaged with medical education and the learning environment in general. So in conclusion, what our studies show is that Asian and URiM students with multiple disability types experience the highest rate of burnout. And this has significant implication for medical education and the physician workforce and our efforts to create a diverse physician workforce to basically meet the needs of the growing US population. So the biggest implication, I would like to revisit what we talked about earlier about revisiting physician turnover. Burnout among physicians leads to a national reduction in effort and attrition that is the equivalent of the aggregate elimination of 19 medical schools. So if we were to add to that, in addition to students reporting burnout early in their medical education, we actually have a leakier pathway to medicine than we thought. So when we look at burnout, and this is preliminary from our group, when we look at burnout and what burnout at year 2 and the subsequent effect on students leaving medical school after year 2, we see that with increasing burnout quartile, so the higher number here, the higher number here means the more burnout a student is, and this is the number of students. So this is the number of students who left medical school after year 2. And we see that there's almost a 2-time increase, or in addition, 200 students who are leaving medical schools who are due to burnout or high rates of burnout. So as you see, if this happens every year or eventually, then we do have a leak in the pathway, even in medical school prior to students becoming residents and physicians. And we don't know what that leak looks like among residents. And that's something that would be great for future research to characterize the both medical trainee turnover and attrition at each stage of medical training due to burnout. And I want to end this presentation with some thoughts about what we see. So based on our study in terms of looking at significantly higher burnout among Asian URiM students with multiple disability, it's kind of hinting towards that there's 2 medical education experiences. One for Asian or Black, Hispanic, URiM students with disability, and then another for non-white, non-disabled students. You can see in terms of the path, I like to think of every path in medicine as a road that, I guess, as an MD PhD student, never seems to end. But the quality of these roads and the maintenance of these roads is vastly different. So on the left here, we have a roads with many potholes that are faced by in the path that a lot of our URiM Asian students with disability face. These roads and the path to medicine includes experiences of discrimination based on disability, race, ethnicity, lack of accommodation and accessibility to foster and promote the performance and well-being of students with disability specifically. Isolation due to lack of representation and invisibility sometimes. And for students with disability, stigma around disclosure and things like that. And then, of course, mistreatment that are faced often by Asian, Black, Hispanic students and students with disability, as well as lack of role models and mentors that students have and have access to in navigating the complexity and challenges of medical education and medical training. And then lastly, having to navigate a hidden curriculum that was not meant for marginalized students, leading ultimately to a higher prevalence of burnout. So what I want to leave everyone with is how can we create a medical education for Asian, Black, Hispanic students with disability that if we want to do a comparison that looks very similar to what white non-disabled students face, how do we reform these roads, remove the potholes and the cracks so that the path to physicianhood, to becoming a physician, to serve a diverse patient population for Asian, Black, Hispanic students with disability is smooth, doesn't have potholes that leads to burnout, leads to attrition, and have significantly higher tax, minority tax for the Asian, Black, Hispanic students with disability. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for your time. And here's my contact information, and I would like to take questions at this time.
That was amazing. I think everybody on our call is probably in absolute agreement. That was just a fantastic talk. Thank you so much. And normally we stop recording, so I just want to make a few announcements beforehand. In the chat, you received a link to the next Dream Grand Rounds. Please feel free to register, and this will be recorded and up on our YouTube page for you. But if we want to go ahead and stop recording, and I'm going to look at all of these great questions that were coming in. And the reason we stop recording